Robert Pirsig's famous book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. On the surface, it looks like a travel story, right? A father and son on a road trip. But if that's all you see, you're missing the real heart of it. What we're going to do today is look past the story and dive into what it really is, a deep, profound philosophical investigation. It's about this fracture, this crack, right at the center of modern life, and one man's desperate, brilliant search for a principle that might be strong enough to hold everything together. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This shows you what's really at stake. This isn't just some abstract academic puzzle. This is about psychic survival. The entire book is driven by this feeling that our world, our minds, have been split into two warring factions. You've got the cold, hard world of reason and logic on one side, and the immediate, messy, beautiful world of experience on the other. Pirsig is searching for a bridge, a way to get them talking again, to heal a mind and maybe a whole culture that's about to fly apart. So, to really get our heads around this, we're going to follow a clear path. First, we'll look at the problem Pirsig saw, what we're calling the modern fracture. Then, we'll see how he uses a simple motorcycle to explore two very different ways of seeing reality. From there, we'll dig into his big solution, this idea of quality. But then we'll have to confront why that solution creates an unbearable weight of meaning. That's when we'll bring in a theological perspective, care, order, and light to clarify things. And we'll wrap it all up with this huge idea, that meaning is something we receive, not something we have to make up ourselves.
Okay, let's start with the diagnosis. Why does this book, decades later, still feel so incredibly relevant? Well, it's because this modern fracture he talks about, we're all living in it. You know that feeling of burnout? When you're really good at your job, you're technically competent, but it all just feels meaningless? That's the fracture. It's the gap between the efficient systems we create and the actual human lives they're supposed to be for. Pirsig saw that this isn't just a matter of preferring art over science or vice versa. It's a deep, damaging split in how we think, and it leaves us feeling fundamentally incomplete.
The key word on this slide is tragedy. It's not just that we have these two ways of seeing the world. The tragedy is that we feel like we have to choose between them. On one side, you've got this cold rationalism that can take an engine apart piece by piece, analyze every function, but completely loses the joy of the ride. It analyzes and analyzes until the meaning just evaporates. And then on the other side, you've got this raw romanticism. It loves the feeling of the wind, the freedom of the road, but it refuses to understand the machine that makes it all possible. It just feels and feels until it all becomes incoherent. Pirsig's whole journey is about finding a way out of that impossible choice. And that's where the book's central metaphor comes in. The motorcycle isn't just transportation for Pirsig. It's his classroom. It's the perfect object for his investigation, because you simply can't appreciate it with just one of those modes. It's both a thing of beauty, a symbol of freedom, and it's a complex interlocking system of parts that has to work just right. So to really understand it, to actually care for it, you were forced to bring those two warring worldviews together and make them cooperate. This slide lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you've got the rational mode, what he also calls the classical view. This is the mechanic's view. It sees the system, the blueprint, what each part is for. It's the world of specs and measurements. Then, on the other hand, you have the romantic mode. This is the rider's view. It's the gleam of the chrome, the rumble of the engine, the feeling of the whole landscape rushing by. Our world tells us these are two different people, two different skill sets. Pirsig's big insight is that they have to live inside the same person. And this isn't just about becoming a more well-rounded person. For Pirsig, working on a motorcycle becomes a profound moral education. First, it teaches you humility. It forces you to submit to reality. You can't feel like the bolt is tight enough. You have to tighten it to the torque specification. The laws of physics don't care about your feelings. Second, it teaches you about attentive care. You skip an oil change, you ignore a weird noise, the engine will seize. The consequences are real and they're merciless. And third, and this is so important, it teaches you about aligning yourself with a given order. The machine works well when you treat it according to its nature, not your own whims. It has an integrity that exists completely outside of you. So this realization that there is an order to things that we have to align with, this leads Pirsig to his central, groundbreaking idea,
the concept he believes can finally heal that modern fracture. He calls it quality. This is his attempt to put a name on that thing that both the mechanic tightening a bolt and the rider leaning into a curve are both looking for. That thing that makes it all good.
Okay, now we have to be really, really precise here. When Pirsig says quality, he does not mean a well-made product, and he doesn't mean your personal taste. He's talking about something way deeper. For him, quality is the fundamental reality that happens before we even slice the world up into subjects and objects, into me and the thing I'm looking at. It's the moment of value itself, before our intellect gets its hands on it. So in his view, quality isn't a property of the motorcycle, and it's not just a feeling in your head. It's the event of recognition that brings you and the motorcycle into a meaningful relationship. It's a seriously daring and brilliant idea.
But, and this is a huge but, this brilliant idea has a really dangerous flaw built right into it. By making this experience of quality the source of all reality, Pirsig accidentally puts an impossible burden on the individual. Think about it. If the experience of quality is what creates meaning, what happens when you fail to experience it? What happens when the self is no longer just a participant in a meaningful world, but becomes the sole generator of that meaning? This question right here, it's what leads to the collapse of his alter ego, Phaedrus.
And that brings us to the tragic core of the book, the mental breakdown of Phaedrus. Now, it's really crucial we don't just look at this as a psychological issue. It's better to see it as a philosophical consequence. It's the logical conclusion of a system that asks a finite human mind to be responsible for creating and upholding an infinite reality. Metaphysical overload is the perfect way to describe it. It reframes his breakdown not as some kind of personal weakness, but as the inevitable result of being asked to do a job you were never built for. It's being asked to be the source of your own ultimate meaning, to literally generate value and reality through the sheer force of your own attention. That's a burden meant for God, not for a person. And under that kind of weight, a mind doesn't just get tired, it shatters. Just stop and think about the sheer pressure of that idea. Imagine if the very fabric of reality, the goodness of your work, the meaning of your life, if all of it depended, moment to moment, on the absolute precision of your focus. There's no room for an off day. There's no room for a mistake. And there it is. That's the devastating conclusion. If your attention is what creates value, then a lapse in your attention isn't just a simple mistake. It's an act of anti-creation. It's a failure that literally threatens to unravel the world. For Phaedrus, a misadjusted tappet isn't just a mechanical error. It becomes a full-blown metaphysical crisis. This is the weight that crushes him. The very system he designed to integrate his mind is what ultimately causes it to disintegrate. So, if Pirsig's solution is so brilliant but also so unstable, where does that leave us? Well, the idea here isn't to just throw away all his insights, it's to reground them. We can introduce a theological framework, a different way of looking at reality that can stabilize everything Pirsig got right about care and attention and quality. And what this does is it gives a solid answer to the question, where does the order come from? It suggests that order is a given feature of the universe, not something we have to desperately invent from scratch every second of every day. This slide right here shows the absolute pivotal shift, and it all comes down to one little verb. On the left, in Pirsig's world, meaning is generated by us. It's manufactured by our care. Our attention literally brings value into existence. But on the right, in this theological framework, meaning is recognized. It's received by our care. In this view, the world already has a given order, a goodness, an integrity. It's already illuminated. Our active care doesn't create the meaning. It's the posture that lets us finally see the meaning that was there all along. Attention becomes an act of reception, not creation. And that takes that impossible metaphysical weight right off our shoulders. And what's so powerful about this shift is that it lets us keep all of Pirsig's most valuable lessons, but on a much sturdier foundation. Attention is still a deeply moral act, but now it's an act of recognizing something real. Technique without care is still destructive, but now we can give that missing ingredient a name,
reverence for what is. The core insight is stronger than ever. Meaning has to be received, not manufactured. Integrating ourselves doesn't happen by sheer willpower. It happens when we orient both halves of ourselves toward a truth outside of us. And we can start to see that a mental fracture isn't just a personal problem. It can be a sign that the self has been asked to play a role it was never meant to play.
So let's bring this all home. The goal is still the same one Pirsig head, to heal the fracture, to become whole again. But the method is fundamentally different. It's a way to become integrated that doesn't require us to become our own gods. And here's the final synthesis. Real harmony isn't about forcing the rational and the romantic parts of ourselves together. It's about orientation. The mechanic's analytical mind and the writer's appreciative heart, they can finally be at peace with each other when they're both pointed in the same direction, toward a truth, an order, a reality that exists completely independent of them. Reason helps us clarify that truth. Wonder opens our hearts to it, and care is how we stay in relationship with it. They become two different, but totally cooperative, ways of participating in a meaning that was here long before we were. And this leads us to a very stark, very humbling, and incredibly important conclusion. After this whole deep dive into the metaphysics of care, we arrive at this. Care, as important as it is not what saves the world. Our attention, our skill, our best intentions, they aren't enough to hold everything together. This completely cuts against any kind of simple self-help version of Pirsig's work. But here it is. Here is the essential takeaway, the final thought. Care may not save the world, but it is the very act that allows the world to show us that it's worth saving in the first place. Care isn't creating value from nothing. It is the faithful moral act of paying attention that allows us to receive and perceive the value that is already there, shining at the heart of reality. It's not our light that makes the world meaningful. Our care is what adjusts our eyes so we can see the light that was always there.